And good morning, and it's always so nice to have Karen Onen with me, and she is from the East Central Regional Transportation Council, Coordinating Council. That's what the two C's stand for. She's been doing quite a few interviews with me, along with guests, talking about transportation, the needs, the concerns, what we have in our area, and we really are even touching on the whole state of Minnesota. So, Karen, it's been kind of a neat series of interviews, and I hope people are learning a lot about it. It's really a good option for you to be able to get this out over the air.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful to be able to be on the air with you, Robin, and to get the word out about what MnDOT is doing, what we're doing with them, and how the ECRTCC is working for our region and what we're up to.
Why don't you introduce our guest this morning?
Well, this morning on the line here is Tim Schmutzer. He is the Executive Director of Phase Industries. And I just want to say good morning, Tim.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
I just excited to have you on. Tim is our chairman of the ECRTCC Advisory Board, and it's been a pleasure to work under him as he leads our meetings and brings up a lot of great questions as we go through our meetings. Tim, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about who you are, what's your background, and then why did you get involved with the ECRTCC?
Well, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. I am the Executive Director for Phase Industries, and we're a nonprofit provider of employment, day support, and transportation services to students and adults throughout East Central Minnesota. And I've been in that role with Phase Industries for about 13 years. And one of the things that has been a constant in those 13 years is the barrier of transportation is often the one that prevents those whom we support from attaining their employment goals or outcomes. At some point, there's something that happens, or the transportation becomes unavailable, or it's not accessible, and it affects their employment and their jobs and their overall well-being. So in that, I began to get involved in transportation many years ago. In a strange way, fallen in love with the concept of it, because I see it as one of the most fundamental functionalities in the world, essentially how to get from point A to point B reliably and safely, and one that continues to evolve in its technologies, including its coordinating technologies, which is equally as important as the technicalities around transportation.
Yeah, the coordination, the scheduling and being sure that whatever you need is available and when you need it. It's a tough one, especially these days with COVID. So now you got involved with the ECRTC at the onset of the ECRTCC, and I so appreciate that. What have you noticed or seen as you've been involved? What do you feel has been accomplished?
Well, interestingly, one of the biggest accomplishments of the RTCCs across the state happened even before they were developed, which was they were funded. And for years prior, we would see these elaborate plans, local transportation coordinating plans being developed across the state, and they were fantastic. But there were no resources behind them to enact them. And so they often tended to gather dust on a shelf. And in 2018, the state authorized money so that these plans could be developed. They were funded. They really required coordinating between state agencies, private entities, transit systems, and across regions of the state. And I will give a shout out to Karen, who has just been a wonderful leader in this, both with the East Central RTCC, but also connecting the work we're doing with the work of all of the RTCCs across the state. And I see that, as of right now, as one of the largest accomplishments. What were siloed systems, people, or entities now talking to each other and working together. And we see some of the outcomes from this. We had legislation passed this year that strengthened our volunteer driver programs across the state. We are in process of strengthening our technology to ultimately end up with a user-friendly, hopefully technological application so that anybody who wants a ride is able to find all of the options available to them in a simple format.
Can I jump in really quick here, Karen, just as a listener and somebody on the outside, maybe a little bit? So he used the term silo, and we also didn't really give an idea when we talk about East Central Regional Transportation and the surrounding ones, who exactly is covered underneath this? So either Tim or Karen, if you want to just kind of cover the silo and location for folks here.
When we talk about silos, we are talking about, say, the different transit systems that are around the state. They worked independently, and they kind of didn't correspond with one another. They didn't interact with one another. And the RTCCs are here to bring them all to the table together with that. And then the GIS, which is the Geographic Information Systems that MnDOT is funding to do right now. We're getting all of the mapping done of all of those transit systems. So we can see where those transportation systems run, and especially more than that, where they're not. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the public transit we're working with, well, we will be working with the private as well. So there's a whole lot of connectivity here. What was your other question?
The other one was just about location, because when we talk about the ECR, and it's pretty much our listening area, but if you want to give those counties.
For East Central, it's Kanabec and Pine, Isanti, Chisago, and Mille Lacs counties. But the RTCCs are located throughout the state. Each RTCC, Regional Transportation Coordinating Council, has a number of counties involved like ours. Mm-hmm. So basically, there's somebody in charge of each one of those, like I am with ours. We are all doing the same thing, but in a way that fits our region. We have 3 public service providers in our region, where, say, Arrowhead has Arrowheads, the region, that transportation system. But then in Duluth, they have a whole lot of different transportation systems there. So it's different for different places.
And it's so important that people understand that that's really what you're here for, and Tim as well, working with you, is to get all this to work together. And it sounds like slowly but surely this is starting to become a map that there is crossover. So it's not just somebody being able to get to the grocery store or to a doctor's appointment. It means that they would have the coordination to be able to go to Duluth, to go out of the state, whatever else. And that's kind of what this is all about. And Tim's part of this as the executive director of Phase Industries. I've seen the Phase buses around, Tim. So maybe give us a little more background about Phase specifically in our area and who they help the most.
So for Phase Industries, we've been in existence for over 50 years, and really we work mostly with adults, but students as well, with intellectual or developmental disabilities. And as part of that, we are really focused on helping people discover their occupational goals, developing the plans to become trained or ready to perform that work, and then connecting them with employers in the community to help them successfully attain employment. And most often, we're working with individuals without driver's licenses or access to vehicles or cars or reliable transportation. And over the years, as one example, in 2011, before Arrowhead Transit was in Pine County, those commissioners really set the goal to get public transportation started, at least in Pine County. And in partnership between the county commissioners, Arrowhead, and Phase Industries, we were not only able to start that, but expand the transportation options throughout the county during the last 10 years. And those options are just going to continue to expand into more dial-a-ride options, into hopefully more regular routes that are available at different times of the day.
I was just going to say, you've got some vehicles that you use. We had talked about sharing those vehicles, but there's an insurance issue that goes along with that. But working forward into this next phase and the phase after of the RTCC is the emergency preparedness and the inventorying of all of the vehicles that could possibly be available in case of an emergency. That's just one part of it, but maybe there's a way, and we're working on this, of being able to utilize the vehicles that you have that are not being used to their fullest extent, that maybe they're only used a few hours every day. How can a person then access those vehicles to be able to then to use for maybe volunteer driver program or something, I guess?
And that's such an important point, and actually also one of the reasons why I originally I got involved in this is because I kept looking at our fleet of vehicles, which sits around 50, and I thought, how can there possibly be a gap in access to transportation into the vehicles in our region when I'm watching our vehicles sit for over the weekends, evenings, early mornings, nights? I thought there's got to be a way that we could partner to be able to share our vehicles. And that is incredibly challenging, especially from the insurance standpoint. So if any of your listeners are insurance agents and you have any ideas on how to share a vehicle owned by one party but wanted to be used by another party for transportation options, please reach out to Karen and let her know your ideas.
I'm very open to suggestions.
There's another point here with the RTCCs that I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss that I think is crucial to us meeting outcomes. And that is one of the things it's doing is really trying to collect what the needs are of every resident. Karen's done a really good job of this, and we need to continue doing it so we fully understand what the current day needs are around transportation and future needs as our demographics move into an aging population where transportation options be more and more required, including accessible transportation.
Well, because we have connections with all of the RTCCs, some of them are a little further ahead, such as those in the Twin Cities and down in the southern part of the state. So utilizing some of the knowledge that they have and being able to connect with them on a monthly basis at a meeting and then being able to call them because they network with we network with one another, I think will really help us build what we have to work for us in our region, doing something similar to what they're doing in their region. So
it's a good idea anytime you can share. And what's the best way if somebody is listening and they do want to be able to give some feedback or tap into that? Karen, do you go through the website you've talked about? Is there a phone number? How do you guys want the public to reach out if they have a specific thing they want to talk to you about?
Well, I would like to let everybody know about our website that we've recently built. It's very easy. It's just eastcentraltransit.com. And when you get to that point, you can then go to contacts, and then you can get a hold of me. And then my email is karen.onan, O-N-A-N, at ECRDC.org.
And Tim, as we're getting a little short on time here, is there anything as we're kind of wrapping up here that you thought you might like to leave us with?
I just want to encourage our listeners, if you get a survey or see a survey on transportation, please answer it. I know surveys can be tedious sometimes, but it's so important. And if you have ideas or see something around transportation that works, doesn't work, or you have an idea, no matter how strange it may sound, please reach out to Karen. Innovation is going to come from getting the entire community involved. And while the system of transportation can sound quite boring, at least according to my wife sometimes, she can say, I can see her eyes glaze over. The fact is that if we strengthen that system based on the true needs of our local community members, the point of service, the options, the real life ramifications from that are going to be positive. You're going to see more transportation options at more times throughout the day at more locations. And so your input is vital and very much needed.
And lastly, I just wanted to mention we are working on the local Human Services Transit Coordination Plan this year, and we will be looking for people from the public to come and talk to us. And so if you please, again, if you go onto the website and let me know that you may be interested in being on a focus group, my phone number, I'm just going to throw it out there, is 320-679-4065, extension 32. So you can reach me that way, leave a message, and I'll pick up the messages and call you back.
Sounds good, Karen. And I will say to you, Tim Schmutzer from Phase Industries, you're the executive director. It's been a pleasure talking with you this morning. I'm sure there'll be maybe opportunities down the road as well. Anytime I talk transportation, I want to do the pun with down the road. So that's why I went with that. And Karen, again, if we're wrapped up here for the most part.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Tim, thanks again, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.
And this has been partially funded by our friends at MnDOT.